Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have been sharing the silver screen and a life together for many a year now.
Goldie. And I said, oh, I'm not changing my name.
She was the girl who laughed her way into America's heart, but behind every dazzling smile was a storm of heartbreak, anxiety, and resilience. From a small-town dancer to Hollywood's golden star, Goldie Hawn's journey is a testament to survival, reinvention, and the healing power of love. The world first fell in love with Goldie Hawn because of her laughter. On television screens across America, she seemed to embody sunshine itself. Wide-eyed, bubbly, and radiant. A woman who could brighten even the darkest of days with just a giggle. To millions, she was the eternal optimist, the golden-haired dream girl who carried happiness as though it were stitched into her very being. But smiles can be deceiving. Behind that infectious charm lived a woman who was far more complex, far more human, and infinitely more fragile than the Hollywood roles she played. Goldie's journey was not one of constant glamour and ease, but one marked by shadows, a childhood fractured by absence, years of self-doubt, crippling anxiety, and battles with heartbreak. Her story is not simply about stardom. It is about resilience, the quiet kind that grows in the cracks of brokenness. It is about a woman who, despite everything, chose to laugh, to dance, and to keep moving forward. The smile the world adored was not just a mask. It was survival. It was strength. It was her way of reminding herself and us that joy can still exist even when the heart aches. Goldie Jean Hawn was born on November 21, 1945, in Washington, D.C., to a family that, from the outside, seemed ordinary. Her father, Edward, was a band musician, while her mother, Laura, managed a dance school. The world she entered was already filled with music and rhythm, yet what little Goldie craved most was stability and safety, things her childhood often denied her. Her father's absence left a void too large for a young girl to comprehend. He wasn't gone in the physical sense, but his distance, emotional and at times literal, created a silence in the home that echoed louder than words. Her mother, strict and demanding, carried her own burdens and had little room for softness. That combination, absence on one side, discipline on the other, shaped Goldie into a child who learned to smile even when she felt unseen. School did not make things easier. Goldie was small, delicate, and different. She was teased, mocked, and bullied for the very qualities that would one day make her unforgettable on screen. The little girl with the big eyes often felt like an outsider in her own classroom. She struggled to fit in, yet somewhere deep inside, she began building a secret reservoir of strength. There was one refuge: dance. From the moment she stepped into her mother's studio, her body spoke a language that words never could. Ballet became her sanctuary, a place where her insecurities faded and grace took over. The discipline of movement gave her focus. The stage gave her a sense of belonging. In the music and motion, she discovered fragments of freedom. But even in dance, the pressure lingered. She was a perfectionist, a child who carried her fears in silence. Goldie wanted to escape, to find a world where laughter and beauty were not just masks, but truths. Each twirl, each step, became more than performance. It was survival. Her broken childhood was not just a backdrop, it was the soil from which her resilience grew. Those early years taught her how to endure absence, how to find light in strictness, and how to keep moving even when the weight of loneliness pressed down. Goldie's pain did not extinguish her spirit. It carved out the path she would later dance upon. As Goldie entered her teenage years, dance was no longer just an escape. It was her identity. She poured herself into ballet, training with a devotion that set her apart. At an age when many of her peers were discovering teenage freedoms, Goldie was already performing with professional companies. her body sculpted by discipline, her spirit tethered to perfection. Yet, beneath the polished movements, doubts gnawed at her. She felt different, never quite belonging to the world around her. In school, while others laughed in cliques, Goldie often stood at the margins, wondering if she would ever be accepted for who she was. Her big eyes, her nervous energy, her dreamy nature, they made her stand out in ways that invited whispers and judgment. Still, she kept moving. Every plie, every pirouette carried a piece of her determination to rise above the shadows of insecurity. But dance also introduced her to the sharp sting of anxiety. The stage, though liberating, also terrified her. She feared not being good enough, not perfect enough. The same stage that gave her wings also shackled her with self-doubt. And yet, there was a flicker of something stronger: ambition. Goldie longed to escape the confines of her small-town world. She dreamed of the lights of New York, of stages that stretched beyond her imagination, of a life where she could create her own identity rather than live in the shadow of expectations. In those years, the seeds of resilience began to blossom. She was fragile, yes, but within that fragility was a stubborn courage. Though she battled panic and uncertainty, Goldie refused to let fear define her. Her teenage years were not about ease or popularity, but about quietly building the determination that would carry her into the whirlwind of fame. Goldie never set out to be a star. Her dream was to dance, to lose herself in the rhythm of ballet. But life has a way of leading us where we least expect. In her early 20s, she moved from Washington, D.C. to New York City, chasing the freedom she had always craved. There, she worked as a go-go dancer, barely scraping by, waiting for something, anything, that might change her fate. That moment came with Rowan and Martin's Laugh In, a sketch comedy show that would define an era. Goldie, with her wide-eyed innocence and spontaneous giggle, became the breakout sensation almost overnight. America couldn't get enough of her. The ditzy blonde who stumbled through jokes with disarming charm. She was funny without trying, radiant without effort, and suddenly she was everywhere. Hollywood soon came calling. In 1969, she landed a role in Cactus Flower, opposite Walter Matthau. No one expected the young, untested actress to steal the spotlight, but Goldie did more than that. She lit up the screen with a mix of vulnerability and effervescence that felt entirely new. The performance won her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Goldie Hawn, the awkward girl once teased at school, was now an Oscar winner at just 24. But with fame came labels. She was celebrated, yes, but pigeonholed as the carefree, clueless blonde. People laughed with her, but few cared to look deeper. The public adored her sparkle, yet Goldie knew the truth. She was not the character they saw on screen. She was thoughtful, anxious, and constantly wrestling with her inner fears. Success felt surreal, almost accidental. She hadn't chased stardom. It had swept her up in its current. Yet with every magazine cover and every red carpet flash, she felt the weight of expectation pressing harder. She could make the world laugh, but when the cameras stopped rolling, Goldie was left with the same insecurities she had carried since childhood. Her breakthrough wasn't just about winning an Oscar. It was about discovering the double-edged sword of fame, the power to be adored by millions, and the pain of being misunderstood by nearly all of them. The world saw Goldie Hawn as the embodiment of joy. She sparkled in interviews, giggled through talk shows, and danced across screens with effortless lightness. But when the lights dimmed and the cameras stopped, another Goldie emerged, one who was deeply fragile, often trembling under the crushing weight of fame. Behind her radiant smile lived a mind haunted by anxiety. At the height of her success, Goldie began to suffer from panic attacks so severe she sometimes struggled to leave her bed. There were mornings when the thought of facing the world felt unbearable, when the glitter of Hollywood seemed like a cruel mask over her quiet despair. She once confessed that she battled depression even in the years when audiences thought she was at her happiest. The loneliness of stardom only deepened her struggles. Surrounded by crowds yet feeling utterly alone, Goldie often questioned whether the life she had built was worth the cost. Her relationships suffered under the glare of the spotlight, and love seemed to slip through her fingers as easily as the roles she turned down. Fame promised fulfillment, but instead, it magnified the emptiness she had carried since childhood. Hollywood's expectations weighed heavily on her shoulders. Studios wanted the ditzy blonde version of Goldie again and again, forcing her into a box that felt suffocating. She craved roles that challenged her, that reflected her intelligence and complexity. But the industry only wanted the giggles. In public, she obliged, flashing the smile the world adored. In private, she felt unseen, trapped by the very persona that had made her a star, And then came the relentless intrusion of the press. Every failed romance, every vulnerable moment was dissected in tabloids. Goldie, who already struggled with insecurity, now had her heartbreaks magnified for the world to consume. The pressure was unbearable, and at times she considered walking away from it all, trading Hollywood's golden lights for the quiet peace she longed for. Yet even in her darkest moments, Goldie clung to one thing: resilience. Though she broke down in silence, she always found a way to stand back up. The smile may have been a mask, but it was also a weapon, her way of fighting back against the shadows. Behind the curtain, Goldie was breaking, but she refused to let the world see her fall. Goldie Hawn's personal life was as complex as her career was dazzling. For all the smiles and laughter she brought to the screen, her journey through love was marked by heartbreak, disappointment, and a constant search for stability. She married young, hoping perhaps that love would provide the grounding her restless spirit craved. But the marriage quickly dissolved, leaving her with the painful realization that companionship wasn't enough to heal old wounds. Her second marriage, to musician Bill Hudson, seemed promising at first. Together, they had 2 children, Oliver and Kate, who would later carve their own paths in Hollywood. For Goldie, becoming a mother was both a gift and a challenge. She adored her children deeply, but balancing the demands of motherhood with the pressures of a high-profile career left her drained. And when her marriage to Hudson fell apart, the fallout was brutal. Oliver and Kate would carry scars from the fractured relationship with their father, leaving Goldie to pick up the pieces as both parent and protector. Through it all, Goldie became increasingly cynical about the institution of marriage. She once remarked that marriage, for her, felt less like a bond of love and more like a contract that could break hearts as easily as it bound them. Her failed relationships left her wary, yet she never stopped yearning for something real, a love that would endure the chaos of Hollywood and the storms of her own anxieties. She dated, she tried again, she stumbled, and she hurt. Goldie knew the sting of betrayal, the ache of loneliness, and the heavy burden of raising children while carrying her own pain. And yet, amid the heartbreak, there was also profound strength. She refused to let bitterness define her. For her children, she remained steady, pouring her love into them even when her own heart was breaking. Goldie's struggles in love were not failures, but lessons. They revealed her humanity, her vulnerability, and her resilience. For all the pain she endured, she never gave up on the possibility of happiness. That quiet hope, fragile but unyielding, would one day lead her to the love story that changed everything. When Goldie Hawn met Kurt Russell in the early 1980s, she wasn't searching for love. She had been through heartbreak, divorce, and disappointment, and had convinced herself that marriage, that traditional promise of forever, wasn't meant for her. But sometimes love finds us when we've stopped looking. And for Goldie, Kurt became the unexpected anchor she had longed for. They had first crossed paths years earlier. When she was 21, and he was just a teenager. But their connection didn't spark until they reunited on the set of Swing Shift in 1983. This time, something clicked. Kurt wasn't intimidated by her fame, nor was he dazzled by the Hollywood glitter that often blinded others. He saw Goldie, the woman beneath the smile, the mother, the worrier, the dreamer. And he loved her exactly as she was. Unlike her past relationships, there was no rush to conform, no pressure to marry. Goldie and Kurt made a deliberate choice to build a partnership based on love, respect, and freedom rather than paperwork. For over 4 decades, they have lived proof that commitment doesn't require a contract. Their bond is defined by laughter, resilience, and a deep understanding that love is not about perfection, but about acceptance. Together, they blended their families, raising Goldie's children, Oliver and Kate, alongside their son Wyatt. The home they created wasn't without its challenges, but it was built on honesty and trust. For the first time, Goldie felt she had found not just a partner, but a true companion. Kurt brought stability to Goldie's world, a steady presence who stood by her through the highs and lows. He was her confidant, her protector, and her equal. In interviews, she often described their love as playful, rooted in joy but sustained by something deeper. The decision, every single day, to choose each other. The turning point of Goldie's life wasn't winning an Oscar or landing a Hollywood role. It was this love, simple yet profound, that finally brought her peace. After years of turbulence, she had found what she had always been searching for, a place to belong, a love that endured. As the years passed, Goldie began to realize that her legacy could not be measured solely by box office numbers or awards. She had entertained the world, yes, but there was a deeper calling pulling at her heart. Fame had brought her joy, but it had also exposed her to the fragility of mental health, her own, and the struggles of countless others. In the early 2000s, she founded the Hawn Foundation, an organization dedicated to improving the lives of children through education and mindfulness. Its flagship program, Mind Up, was designed to teach young people emotional resilience, stress management, and the tools to navigate an increasingly chaotic world. For Goldie, this wasn't just philanthropy. It was a mission rooted in her own battles with anxiety and depression. She wanted children to have the guidance she never had growing up. At the same time, she stepped into producing and directing, proving that she was far more than the ditzy blonde Hollywood once typecast her as. She became a creator, a thinker, a woman who carved her own space in an industry that rarely allowed women to lead. This reinvention showed the world the real Goldie, a woman of intelligence, vision, and heart. She was no longer just the actress who made people laugh. She was the advocate who helped people heal. Goldie Hawn's legacy is layered, much like her life. In Hollywood, she remains a rare figure, a woman who not only sustained a decades-long career, but also defied the stereotypes that tried to box her in. From comedies like Private Benjamin to heartwarming family films, she proved her versatility, her charm, and her staying power. But her influence stretches beyond the screen. As a mother, she raised children who became stars in their own right. Kate Hudson, in particular, has often spoken about the deep love, laughter, and guidance her mother gave her. Goldie's parenting wasn't perfect, but it was authentic, filled with honesty, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the power of joy. As a partner, her love story with Kurt Russell stands as one of Hollywood's most enduring romances. In a town known for broken vows and fleeting love, their relationship is a beacon of what's possible when two people choose each other, again and again, without needing a piece of paper to validate it. And as a mental health advocate, Goldie has become a voice of compassion in a world where vulnerability is often hidden. By speaking openly about her struggles with anxiety and depression, she has given others permission to seek help, to embrace mindfulness, and to believe in the possibility of healing. Goldie Hawn's true gift is not that she made millions laugh, though she did, and still does. Her gift is that she showed us joy and pain can coexist, that resilience is born from hardship, and that even the brightest stars have shadows. She is more than a Hollywood legend. She is a human being who dared to be real. In the end, Goldie Hawn's story is not about fame or fortune. It is about the light that can be found even in the darkest of places. The smile that made her famous was never just an act. It was her way of surviving, her way of choosing hope when despair seemed easier. From a broken childhood to the dizzying heights of stardom, from heartbreak to lasting love, from crippling anxiety to inspiring resilience, Goldie has lived many lives within one. Each chapter has carried its share of pain, but also its share of joy. She never denied her struggles, and in that honesty, she became more than an entertainer. She became a guide for anyone who has ever felt broken, anxious, or unseen. Her laughter remains timeless, but it is her courage that defines her. Goldie Hawn is proof that joy is not the absence of pain, but the decision to dance through it. Her life reminds us that strength is not about never falling, but about rising with a smile that tells the world, "I am still here. I am still shining." Goldie's light is golden because it was forged in shadow, and that is what makes it eternal. If Goldie Hawn's story inspired you, don't let it end here. Share this video with someone who needs a spark of hope, drop a comment with your favorite Goldie moment, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss more stories of resilience, love, and the human spirit.